Okay, this is a video on how you guys are going to perform your streak plates. It's just a little pictorial drawing with some hints also on how to be effective in doing this. So you're going to start off with your broth tube of bacteria. It's nice and cloudy. You take your loop, your inoculation loop, and you flame it in the Bunsen burner. And then you take your loop and you put it into the tube, swirl it around, and get a bunch of bacteria on your loop. You take your agar dish here, and you will take that loop and you will just smear it across the top. Just like this, really, really gently. Take your loop and you're just gonna gently touch the surface of the agar, just as if you were painting with a little tiny paintbrush, just gently touching the surface of the agar. You don't want to take your loop and jab it into the agar. That will break the agar surface and you'll get clumps of agar when you try to smear it across. If that happens to you, just go get another dish and start over again. Doing a streak plate with a dish of agar that is all broken up is not going to produce really good results. Okay, so you took your loop full of bacteria, you spread it across the first top. That is your first quadrant. You're going to get rid of that tube. You don't need the tube anymore, but you do need your Bunsen burner, so you have your flame on. You take your inoculation loop and you flame it in the Bunsen burner. It's going to glow bright red, and that way you can tell that you've gotten all the bacteria off of your loop. So you have your plate and you already have this quadrant with a bunch of bacteria on it. You take your fresh, clean loop and you're going to take it and you're going to start right here in the corner, and you're going to drag your loop through the bacteria across the surface and make a little zigzag. You're going to make sure that you don't go back and forth again. The only time you do that is the first time you're putting the bacteria on your plate. When you do the second one, you just pull it from here and do a nice little zigzag. You don't go back into this area of concentration. So that is your second quadrant. You have your flame still going, so you're going to take your loop and you're going to flame it again until it gets red hot, to know you got all the bacteria off of it. So you go back to your plate, you have this quadrant done already, you have your second quadrant done already, and now you're going to go into your third quadrant. So you start over here on the edge of the plate, draw it through the second quadrant and make that little zigzag again, making sure you don't pick up any more bacteria from this area. You just pull it through once and make a little zigzag. This is your third quadrant then. Again, here's your Bunsen burner. You're going to flame your loop to get it red hot, and then you go back to your plate. So you have the first one done, you have the second quadrant done, you have your third, and you're going to go to your final quadrant now. And you see how I'm turning the paper around? You're actually going to be turning your plate around as you do this. So you're going to start over here on the edge. We always start on the edge, pull it through here, and then make your little zigzag. Now, the fourth quadrant is very, very important that you don't continue to go into the first quadrant where all of that bacteria is. We're trying to dilute out the bacteria so that by the time we get here, you'll have isolated colonies. Your plate is not going to look like this right after you streak it. We have to incubate it, and then after we incubate it, you'll come back next week and your plate will look something like this. You'll have a lot of bacteria up here, just tons of bacteria, a little less and a little less, and then hopefully you'll have tiny little isolated colonies in this fourth quadrant. Fourth quadrant. This is where you want your isolated colonies to be. So a couple helpful hints. You need to remember to flame every time before you go back and touch that plate. If you forget to flame your loop, you're going to just have something that looks like this. like just huge lines everywhere. You're not going to have this nice isolated colony. So make sure you flame in between each time you touch that plate. Another tip for some people, they have trouble staying in these quadrants. You can start off with your plate, take your plate, and you can draw some quadrants on the plate with a Sharpie. So 1, 2, 3 lines. That way you can mark in here, this is my first quadrant where you put all the bacteria. This is my second quadrant where I'm going to pull from this corner into here. This is my third quadrant. You're going to pull from here into there. And this is my fourth quadrant where you pull like this. So some people find that helpful if they actually have the lines drawn. That way they can see where they've already been and where they should be going. Because you're not going to be able to see the bacteria because it needs to incubate. So all you're going to be able to see are faint little scratch marks where your loop has been on the agar surface. And that is sometimes a little bit difficult to see if you're not holding the plate at the right angle. So you can definitely draw on the quadrants like that. There's also another video on Brightspace that I did not make. You can watch that too. It's someone who's actually streaking on an actual agar plate, so you can go ahead and watch that, and then you'll have lots of time to practice in class. We'll be doing this over and over again until you guys can get the isolated colonies, and everyone eventually gets it. It just takes a little bit of practice.